My name is Karen. 3 weeks ago, I walked out of that conference room as handcuffs snapped shut behind my so-called family. Now, sitting in this quiet coffee shop, sipping on a $5 coffee I paid for with money earned from my own code, I'm reminded of how I finally broke free from their web of lies and abuse. The air inside the conference room was thick with the smell of leather, dry cleaning chemicals, and the promise of $850 million. The buyers, cold-eyed executives from a global biotech firm, stared at my brother, Max, with the intensity of predators. My parents, Richard and Victoria, beamed like they were royalty, while my father gave me a sharp nod to refill the water pitchers. I took my place in the shadows, watching as Max began his pitch. Gentlemen, what you're about to see isn't just software. It's the future of genetic medicine, he boasted, clicking a remote to bring the screen to life. The complex visualizations of DNA helices and data points were beautiful, and they were mine. I'd spent years writing the genome core, but Max claimed it as his life's work. The lead buyer, Mr. Blackwood, leaned forward and demanded a live simulation. Max sat at the command laptop, typed in his credentials, and hit the execute button. At first, everything seemed to go smoothly. The progress bar moved steadily to 10%, then 20%. But then it all fell apart. The progress bar froze at 33%. The hum of the laptop fan spiked, and the spinning DNA helix on the big screen stuttered to a stop. Max tried to play it off as a Wi-Fi issue, but I knew better. I'd changed the locks on the system. As Max typed furiously, his composure cracking, the silence in the room became unbearable. Mr. Blackwood's voice was quiet and dangerous when he asked, "Is there a problem?" Max looked up, the terror I'd seen earlier magnified 1,000 times. He looked at me, and for a split second, he realized what I'd done. Then the screen flickered, and red letters filled the room. It wasn't a crash report. It was a legal notice. Error 451. Unavailable for legal reasons. Intellectual property infringement detected. Source code ownership. Karentech. Status. Unauthorized usage. Access revoked. Report. Evidence of securities fraud logged. The room went deathly silent. Max stammered, trying to call it a glitch or a hack, but it was too late. Mr. Blackwood opened an email I'd timed to coincide with the API revocation. It was a certified patent for the genome core architecture, listing me as the inventor. Max collapsed as Mr. Blackwood terminated the deal. The leverage he'd held over me vanished, and the lenders would seize everything by morning. But just as I turned to leave, the doors burst open, and 3 armed officers stormed in, aiming at me. My father shouted, "She's suicidal. She has a knife." It was a classic setup, a false psychiatric hold to discredit the whistle-blower. But I was ready. I calmly told the officer I was unarmed, a whistle-blower, and instructed him to remove the plastic envelope taped to my chest. Inside was a notarized affidavit of sanity and a restraining order against my parents and Max. As I look back, I'm reminded of how it all started. 6 months ago, while Max was finalizing the pitch for this acquisition, I was locked away in the basement of our family's old manor in the countryside. My parents had converted it into a workspace, claiming it was for my own good, to keep me focused. It was a prison with a Wi-Fi connection. I remember the smell of damp concrete, the ozone from overheating servers, and the stale coffee. Upstairs, I could hear the sounds of a fancy party. My mother, Victoria, came down around 9 p.m., wearing a designer dress that cost more than my entire wardrobe. She brought me a cold sandwich and a blister pack of pills, claiming they were vitamins to help me focus. They were stimulants, amphetamines she'd gotten from her private doctor to keep me coding for hours on end. Around midnight, Max stumbled in, drunk on expensive whiskey and adrenaline. He laughed at me, calling me a corpse. When I told him I needed time because the architecture was collapsing, he grabbed my face, his fingers digging into my jaw. "You don't need time. You need gratitude. You're a liability to this family, and we've made you useful. You should be thanking us," he hissed. That was the night I stopped trying to please them. That was the night I started planning my revenge. 2 days ago, I found the paperwork in Max's office. When I was 20, he tricked me into signing a general power of attorney, saying it was for tax purposes. He'd used it to mortgage my entire trust fund to hard money lenders to finance this acquisition. If the deal went through, I'd never know. If it failed, I'd be destitute. So, on the day of the big presentation, as Max and my parents celebrated with the investors, I slipped away. I still had my old security badge because Max's arrogance made him sloppy. I walked into the server closet, typed in my admin credentials, and revoked access to the master API key, the digital handshake that connected the software to the database. I physically removed the backup drive and dropped it into my purse. Now, as I sit here in this coffee shop, reading the headlines about Max's downfall, assets seized, bail denied, false police report charges filed, I feel a sense of freedom. I deleted the last 3 contacts from my phone, and this bitter, hot coffee tastes like the sweetest victory.